Okay, so the next in attachment is institutionalisation. Now, what this looks at is the effect of living in an institutional setting. So that's anywhere like a hospital or an orphanage where children live for a continuous period of time. So that's what we mean by institutionalisation. And psychologists look at it because arguably there is less emotional care in an institution than there is in another type of kind of home setting for children. Now, there's kind of two studies that you need to know here. They're not named on the spec, but you need to know about them. The first one is the ERA, so that's English and Romanian adoptee study, but that's Rutter's study. And what this looked at was a group of Romanian orphans who were adopted to Britain to look at their physical, cognitive, and emotional development over time, and then compare them to a control group of 52 British adopted children. So it's a longitudinal study. It happens over a period of 9 years. What Rutter found was that half of the Romanian children showed signs of mental retardation and malnourishment when they arrived in the UK. At 11, they showed some recovery related to their age of adoption. The average IQ for those Romanian children who'd been adopted before the age of 6 months was 102. Those that had been adopted between 6 months and 2 years was 86, and those that were adopted after 2 years was 77. So this supports this idea of a critical period that damage is done or could potentially be done in the first 2 years. But if a child is moved into a different situation to the children that were adopted before 6 months, then none of this kind of damage, the maternal deprivation stuff that Bobby was talking about, can happen. If you're evaluating this study itself, so there's more in the study in the booklet in your textbook, you could say that the older children, the differences in them may be due to lack of stimulation in the orphanage. It's a natural experiment, so there might have been other variables that couldn't have controlled. It's ethnocentric, so it might lack population validity. It might not apply to other children. However, it's a longitudinal study, so you've got lots of information over time. Then you've got the Bucharest Early Intervention Project, which looked at 95 children who'd spent a good portion of their life in institutional care, again compared to a control group who'd never been in an institution, and this looked at their attachment type using the strange situation experiment, and then interviews and observations with the children and their carers. What this study found were that in the control group, 74% was securely attached, but in the institutional group, only 19% was securely attached. 65% of these institutional children were classified with disorganised attachment, and 44% were disinhibited attachment. The argument from this study and from the first study is that one effect of institutionalisation is to change your attachment style. So disinhibited attachment is where the children are equally friendly and affectionate to people they know or don't know. This is unusual. 2-year-olds usually show stranger anxiety. These children were kind of quite happy to go to people they didn't know. And Rutter argues that this is a result of adapting to living with multiple caregivers. So they are likely to form attachments with kind of anyone. In the study, these children again showed mental problems, mental retardation, it's called in the study. Most showed signs when they arrived in Britain. The ones adopted by 6 months had caught up. And again, it is saying that any damage before 6 months can be rectified in that kind of first bit, the critical period. Evaluating this study, there are practical applications. It's got a good application to real life. It helps with the use of key workers for children in nursery. Romanian orphan studies have fewer confounding variables than other research, and they have high internal validity. However, there might be issues with generalizability.